The wind howled through the barren ruins of Elendor, whipping ash and dust around the crumbled remains of what had once been a thriving kingdom. Calenthea Vayl knelt in the center of the ruined village, her armor caked with soot and her sword planted in the cracked earth beside her. Around her lay the remnants of homes, shattered walls, and the charred skeletons of what had once been lives filled with hope. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint rustle of her cloak as it shifted in the wind. She had prayed to the gods, everyone she could name and even a few she couldn't, but no answer had come. Her homeland was gone, her people scattered or dead, and the victory she had fought so hard to achieve felt hollow. Victory, she had learned, was just another word for surviving long enough to see everything you love turn to ash. If there is one who can end this pain, hear me. Take it away or let me bear it alone. The air shifted, the wind ceased, the ash hung suspended in the air, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Calenthea raised her head, her hand instinctively tightening around the hilt of her sword. The stars above dimmed, their light muted, as if they too had been caught in the stillness. And then she heard it, a voice, soft and resonant, like a whisper carried on the edges of eternity. Orvalis, child of sorrow, you seek peace where there is none. But what if I told you pain could be stilled, grief held in suspension, and what you love preserved forever? Calenthea turned, but no figure stood before her. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, an omnipresent hum that resonated in her very soul. Her heart pounded in her chest, yet her mind was strangely calm. It was as if the presence had wrapped her in a cocoon of stillness, muting her fear and sharpening her thoughts. A shadow coalesced before her, forming into the shape of a figure cloaked in an ethereal glow. Orvalis's presence was not imposing but profound, like the weight of an ancient truth. His form was undefined, shifting as if he existed just outside the reach of mortal comprehension. In one hand, he held an hourglass, its cracked glass encasing silver sand that neither fell nor rose, but hung suspended in time. Calenthea felt the weight of his gaze, though she saw no eyes beneath the hood of his spectral cloak. She bowed her head, tears streaming down her face. The words struck her like a blade. She had spent so long fighting, so long refusing to yield, that she had never considered surrender as an option. And yet here she was, kneeling in the ashes of her failure, desperate for an end to the suffering she could no longer endure. Calenthea, what do you offer? Orvalis peace. A stillness that halts the cycles of pain and loss. You will no longer fight to preserve what is doomed to fade. Instead, you will preserve it forever. But know this, the path I offer is one of solitude. To carry the sorrow of others is to accept that they may never understand your mercy. Calenthea closed her eyes, the weight of his words settling over her. She thought of the lives she had failed to save, the friends and comrades lost to war, the children who had starved while she fought battles that had come too late. She thought of the gods she had prayed to, who had watched her struggle and answered only with silence. When she opened her eyes, there was no hesitation. Calenthea, I accept. Teach me how to carry their sorrow. Orvalis extended a hand, and Calenthea felt a surge of energy unlike anything she had known. Her armor, once gleaming silver, turned to a muted ash gray, its surface etched with symbols of stillness and preservation. Her sword, a blade that had slain countless enemies, shimmered and reshaped itself into something new. The hilt remained familiar, but the blade now glowed faintly with a silver light, its edge rippling like the surface of a still pond. It was no longer a weapon of death, but a tool of mercy, the blade of stasis. Her body changed as well. Her once battle-worn frame now radiated an otherworldly calm. The silver glow of her eyes reflected the timeless energy of Orvalis, and when she spoke, her voice carried the same quiet resonance as his. Orvalis said, "You are now my sorrow-bearer. Go forth and bring my mercy to those who suffer. But remember, not all will welcome it. Many will fear what they do not understand." Calenthea said, "I will bear their sorrow, even if they curse me for it." Years later, Calenthea stood atop the crumbling battlements of Talvarin, the last bastion of hope for a kingdom besieged by a necromancer's army. Below her, the dead surged like a tide, their hollow eyes glinting with unnatural light. The defenders were outnumbered 10 to 1, their walls cracking under the relentless assault. Calenthea raised her blade, its silver light cutting through the night. "Calenthea, hold the line!" The soldiers obeyed, rallying around her as she descended into the fray. Her blade did not kill but froze, encasing the undead in shimmering stasis. Around her, time seemed to slow, the chaos of battle muted by her presence. But it was not enough. The necromancer, a towering figure cloaked in shadows, unleashed a final curse as he fell. A dark wave of magic rippled outward, threatening to consume the city and transform its people into mindless husks. Calenthea turned to the sky, her voice breaking with desperation. "Calenthea, Orvalis, help me save them!" The air stilled and Orvalis's voice echoed in her mind. "Orvalis, you can save them, Sorrowbearer, but only by binding their souls in stillness. They will live unbroken, but not as they were. Is mercy worth such a price?" Tears streamed down Calenthea's face as she raised the blade of stasis. "Calenthea, it is." A wave of silver light erupted from her blade, enveloping the entire city. The curse was halted, the undead army frozen in place. The people of Talvarin were saved, their lives suspended in an eternal moment. But Calenthea knew they would never wake, never feel the passage of time. She had preserved them, but at a cost only she would carry. Calenthea vanished after the siege of Talvarin. Some say she wandered into the Wailing Sands, guarding the relics of Orvalis. Others believe she ascended to the eclipsed expanse, standing vigil at the edge of her patron's prison. Her legacy endured, however. The Eternal Shepherds, inspired by her sacrifice, spread Orvalis' teachings across Vestrin. They honor her as the First Sorrowbearer, a figure both tragic and revered. Her statue stands at the heart of Talvarin, a city frozen in time, her blade raised in eternal vigil. And though her name is spoken in whispers, her story lives on, a reminder of the price of mercy and the enduring weight of sorrow. Calenthea's legend did not end at the gates of Talvarin. Her life became a journey, a pilgrimage through the fractured remnants of a world that did not yet understand her purpose. Stories spread across Vestrin of a solitary figure draped in ashen grey armor, carrying a blade that shimmered with the eerie stillness of her patron's mercy. She appeared in the shadows of crumbling kingdoms and the aftermath of unspeakable tragedies, offering aid to the grieving and the broken. But Calenthea never lingered. Wherever she went, she left behind whispers of salvation and unanswered questions. To some, she was a savior, a saint who eased their pain and brought peace to their suffering. To others, she was a harbinger of stagnation, a reminder that her mercy often came at a cost too great to bear. Years after the siege of Talvarin, Calenthea found herself at the edge of Halomir, a once thriving city reduced to ruins by a plague of rot that seeped through its soil and water. The survivors, a mix of desperate farmers and fleeing nobles, had gathered at the outskirts, waiting for a miracle that would not come. The air stank of decay, and even the trees surrounding the mire had withered into lifeless husks. When Calenthea arrived, the camp was on the verge of collapse. Hunger gnawed at the refugees, and the whispers of madness began to creep among them. As she walked through their camp, her blade glowing faintly at her side, the people shrank from her, recognizing the unsettling calm that followed her everywhere. At the heart of the camp, she met Father Domren, a cleric of Pelor who had devoted himself to easing the refugees' suffering. His face, lined with exhaustion, hardened when he saw her approach. "You carry the mark of Orvalis. What mercy can you offer that doesn't come with chains?" Mercy is not the absence of sacrifice. It is the willingness to bear the weight of it for others. We do not need your stillness. We need life, renewal, hope. And what hope do you offer? You fight against what cannot be undone. I offer a chance to preserve what remains. Their argument grew heated, but Calenthea did not raise her voice. She spoke of the inevitability of loss and the small kindnesses that could be salvaged. Domren countered with appeals to resilience and the natural cycles of life and death. In the end, the decision was not his to make. As the plague crept closer, threatening to consume what little was left of Halomir, the people turned to Calenthea. The children looked up at her with wide eyes, their faces pale with sickness, while their parents knelt before her, pleading for her aid. And so she raised her blade and brought forth the stillness. The next morning, Halomir was silent. The rot had stopped spreading, the sick were preserved in peaceful repose, and the land seemed to hold its breath. Father Domren wept as he walked through the frozen remnants of the camp, his faith shaken by the terrible mercy he had witnessed. Though Calenthea bore the title of Sorrowbearer, she never claimed to lead Orvalis's followers. The Eternal Shepherds revered her, seeking her guidance in their rituals and philosophy, but she remained distant from their growing ranks. She believed herself unworthy of the reverence they showed her. After all, hers was a path of failure as much as it was one of salvation. She often walked alone through the wailing sands, where time and space twisted unnaturally, leaving echoes of past lives suspended in the air, like half-remembered dreams. Here, she communed with Orvalis, her patron's whispers guiding her to places where her mercy was needed most. Legends say that in her final years, Calenthea returned to Talvarin, now a frozen city of eternal twilight. There she stood vigil at the gates, watching over the stillness she had created. Some claim she disappeared into the eclipsed expanse, her soul becoming one with Orvalis's prison. Others believe she remains a silent guardian waiting for the day when the world will truly understand the gift of stillness. Centuries later, the story of Calenthea, the first Sorrowbearer, is told in hushed tones among the Eternal Shepherds. Her name is etched into their sacred texts and sung in mournful hymns at their shrines. Her blade, the blade of stasis, is said to rest within the vault of sorrow, its glow faint but unyielding. But Calenthea's legacy extends beyond her followers. Across Vestrin, her story serves as a reminder of the complex nature of mercy. To some, she is a saint who bore the weight of sorrow so that others might find peace. To others, she is a cautionary tale of a woman who traded life's vitality for unyielding stillness. Yet in the quiet moments between battles and tragedies, there are those who claim to feel her presence, a faint whisper carried on the wind, a flicker of silver light in the corner of their vision. And when they do, they know that Calenthea Vayl, the first Sorrowbearer, still walks among them, bearing their sorrow so they don't have to.